All righty. Here we are, or at least I hope we are. Whoa, DJ in the house. Good to have you here. Pat, sorry you can't join. Fighting fires. Yeah, it's a little more important than what we're doing here, but thank you for checking in. And also to Thaddeus, good to see you. Um, Glad you're doing well. And I'm assuming that was your doc that you're talking about. So that's exciting news. Wednesday, September 11th. Strange day in some respects. Can't believe it's been 23 years since that whole thing, that horrific day unfolded. And very strange for me, not that I was going to talk about this on the live stream, but I lived in the New York tri-state area for most of my childhood into my teens, and um, grew up right in Manhattan from the age of 7 until what, 20, something like that. And and at the time when September 11th happened, I had a friend who was visiting from Los Angeles. He was scheduled to return home on September 11th, and we had actually gone into the city the day before, and I had, for the first time since basically being a kid, went to the World Trade Center and all over Manhattan. Basically, did all the touristy things with one of my best friends, and yeah, so it was a weird day. Father-in-law in the city, not knowing where he is, other family members in the city. Um, just all around a strange day, and I think strange for everybody. And obviously, I am close with people who lost people, and who firefighters and all kinds of stuff. Um, but I think it was a little bit different for people who lived geographically right in New York. The experience was felt all over the country, but my friend, for instance, was stuck with us for another week and a half, I believe, before he could even, because they grounded all the flights, could even fly back to Los Angeles. So, yeah, wasn't planning on talking about that, but then just said Wednesday, September 11th, and then remembered that. And that is part of our history, shouldn't be forgotten, and not a good day. But there you go. Yes, and as Brandon says, the entire West Coast now seems to be on fire. Yeah, and the smoke's going to you, where it's probably over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. All right. So here we are with another weekly live stream. I will, just for housekeeping reasons, say that, and I think we have things to talk about today, new product announcements, and you'll bring stuff up in the chat. But I will say that we did this fun little trivia thing at the end of August for the B&H monthly contest, and I had a lot of fun doing that. It was a bit silly, but I think it was a good format, not one I want to repeat all of the time, but I've been thinking about it for September, and I think it would be really fun to do another movie trivia thing. We do need to put some things into place that if you've won maybe for the last 2 months, that you're not going to repeat again, because it's just going to be the same people over and over and over again. So that's not a bad thing for you, but I think if you are, part of the channel and everything, I want people to be winning prizes on a regular basis, but we want to make it fair, and I do want people who are coming to the channel, watching the content, engaging, to also have an opportunity. So what I'm thinking is, again, for housekeeping reasons, next Wednesday, whatever that is, September, 17th, 18th? Somebody tell me what day it is. 18th, probably, right? Yeah, September 18th, that we will do the monthly trivia thing. The good thing about it is you don't really have to prepare. unless you want to go out and buy a book on movie trivia. I don't think it's necessarily going to help because I'm going to pull some things probably from left field. But basically, we'll have a bank of questions. I'll have a bank of prizes, and there you go. Who are we talking about? David. What David? What are you saying, Brandon? What are you talking about? Are you talking about winners for the prizes? Yeah. All right. So, and then we'll have to have somebody who's a recent winner. Brandon, I'm talking to you if you're going to be here next Wednesday. Maybe you're watching the live stream so you can see when people answer and in what order. So I need a little bit of a gatekeeper. So maybe you can be the key master, the gatekeeper, something like that. Who knows? All right. So, I did forget to ask this question, by the way, which is the picture and sound good? Because I'm actually uploading David Carroll, yeah. I'm uploading an episode of the Daily Drop right now, and I realized that may be taking some of my up bandwidth. So I want to know if there's reduced quality or anything like that, because I'll just stop the upload and redo it later on. But if you're seeing a clean picture and you're getting clean sound and it doesn't seem out of sorts, then I'll just stay the course and let that episode continue to upload. And hopefully it's prioritizing the daily drop. The weekly live stream. But let me know. So what you got for me, kids? You're only a third placer. Brandon, you're a multiple winner, okay? You're a winner in my book, but let's just be honest. Good. Maybe that's foreshadow, maybe it's not, DJ. I don't know. I'm like a bad penny. Yeah, okay, there we go. Uh, it was terrible at the start of the stream, but it's fine now. Clean here. Thank you, Greg. Great and great. You're 5. All right. I'm going to continue the upload. If it gets shitty, just let me know. Okay? Excuse the it's not French. It's English. If it gets shitty, let me know and then we'll do something about that. I have it on standby, but it's good to know, and next time I won't start an upload 10 minutes before the live stream. It creeps up on me whenever I do it. The live stream, not the uploads. Tomorrow's episode's a bit of a talkie. I'm going to kind of go over, it'll look familiar. I'm going to be wearing this. I'm going to be talking about my initial thoughts on the Canon EOS C80, which was, of course, announced on Monday of this week. IBC starts in 2 days, the 13th of September, goes through the 16th. A lot of companies are going to be exhibiting there. A lot of companies are going to be showing new products. And of course, if you go to newsshooter.com or cined.com, you'll see all of that stuff on those pages. Fair amount of new stuff. And, we still have a couple of days before the show starts, but we had the that's not demonetized. They don't care about that. I'm allowed to say a bad word or two, I think, DJ. So, we've got the C80 that was announced. We have some new Cook lenses, new lenses from a lot of companies, actually, just one-offs or sets. And then, of course, along with the C80, probably the other big announcement that kind of had a splash was the Aperture, the new 1200X with their new Blair system, which has this multi-light engine. I got a sneak peek of that. I can say that now. Cinegear. At Cinegear, I got a sneak peek at that. Went into a room and kind of saw where they were going. And really interesting because I've been saying for a long time that what I'm most interested in, regardless of how we get there with LED lighting, is white light. Because 95 to 99% of the time, when we are actually capturing images, what we're trying to do is use white light. Somewhere along that Kelvin, temperature, not spectrum, because spectrum really has to do with how much of the spectrum is being captured, but of the Kelvin temperature range. Thank you. I came up with that eventually. So that 1200X is really interesting to me because, they've got these multi-light engines, no white LEDs, but the combinations of those in theory. And, Tim Kang's a smart guy. I've known him for a long time. Ted's a smart person, smart guy, and known him for a long time. And you've got people like Mitch, who, has been around for a long time, used to be, we'll just say, with ProLight, but with many other companies. And I've known Mitch for a long time. Brandon over there for a long time. Know a lot of the people at Aperture. And it's exciting to see that they're not just looking at full color LED technology. They understand that there is a place for that. And maybe this is the beginning of a little bit of separation. I'm just riffing here and just talking about that, where we start to see, fixtures that are designed for white light, and then other ones that are going to be more specialized for color, for that saturation. That's going to be kind of interesting from a camera standpoint, because obviously, to me, the white light for talent and for your subject matter are the most important. But of course, when you are using color LEDs, you want to make sure you're getting the most saturation, the most reproducible reflected light that's possible. And so it'll be interesting to sort of see how we approach that. We very clearly can take a light fixture now and create white light in terms of that Kelvin range, but also use full color fixtures. But once it starts to get more refined by companies like Aperture and Nanlite and companies like that, we'll start to see where this all goes. But it is exciting to see that a company isn't just going down the same route. We've started to see these little seeds when it comes to LED lighting, with the two blue LEDs and other ways to sort of circumvent the issues that we run into with LED technology in general. But yeah. And the answer to your question, Shoji Productions, is yes. My understanding is the 1200X is the first product in a new line of Aperture lights. And then Ted teased it at the end. There's also going to be essentially a new line of full color, or at least a line of full color that we don't know if that's going to be a new approach to that, or exactly what that's going to be interesting to see if they go RGB ACL with that, more like ProLight, or they do something else. But this Blair, what is it? Blue, lime, amber, indigo, right? And then red. I think I'm right on that. So it's a 5 light engine, and unlike RGB ACL 6. Sorry, I'm counting on fingers like I'm 3 years old. Yeah. So there you go. So Bill says, and thank you for putting the at the C47 for your questions. It helps a lot. What do you think about the new Sony Z or Z200 camcorder? Honestly, Bill, I don't have any thoughts on it. I saw the press release come through. I didn't look into it in depth. I'm assuming it's a 1-inch sensor. I might be wrong about that, but that's my guess. And that form factor with these compact, we'll call them camcorders, with smaller sensors, is something that companies like Panasonic and Canon and Sony, they sort of refresh these every 2.5 years, 3 years, to basically integrate newer technology that they've been using in other cameras. So yes, smaller sensor. Generally, the smaller sensors, though, with how they're designing them and everything that they're doing, they're getting better in low light. They're not going to perform like a full frame sensor in a mirrorless camera or in a digital cinema camera, but they will perform admirably. And then they'll start to integrate more of their AF technology, their AI, machine learning stuff, all of that. My assumption is that the Z200 does that. And from that standpoint, having a smaller camera that has better reach, especially for further away because of the smaller sensor, and has such a wide range in terms of the widest to the tightest or longest focal length, there are advantages to using those types of cameras. And if you're in an environment that has enough light in it, you're shooting events and things like that, then these smaller chip cameras can still be very advantageous. I mean, the difference in terms of what we have to do when we're shooting a live event with a large sensor camera, if you can imagine, because in order to get the reach that you need, your lenses are, they're beyond this. They're humongous, and they're getting a little more compact in some respects, but they're still monsters compared to having the equivalent field of view out of a smaller sensor camera. So there are still advantages to that. Besides Blair, are there any entirely new features in the Aperture 1200X? That's a good question. I mean, that's the main one, is really the light engine itself. Just trying to think. I mean, it's IP65 rated, which isn't necessarily new for a fixture, but they're definitely designing it that. And I'd say the other big feature, Shoji Productions, is the new locking Bowens mount that they have, where it's very much like like a locking mount that you would have on a camera, like a PL or positive locking mount on the camera, where you basically put the fixture in. I'm sorry, I'll say that again. You put the modifier into the fixture, and then you just turn that, and it locks it into place. So that means that they can be a little bit more robust with the modifiers that they're using. And a modifier could just be a softbox, but it could really be something like a projection attachment. And, we're starting to see powered projection attachments now. So they've got electronics in them, they're heavy, so on and so forth. Good Jeff, what's happening? It's neat to see the new Sony camcorder with all the color signs, 10-bit AF, auto, electronic ND, and form factor. I think it's great. Yeah, so it makes sense. And, they're kind of just taking all of that stuff that we would expect to have in nowadays a mirrorless or a digital cinema camera and putting it into that compact camcorder form factor, which is still relevant, which still makes a lot of sense for certain types of things. You just got to have enough light. That's really the big thing for your exposure. Yep. The PL style Bones mount is awesome. It was my favorite feature. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking for the best white light I can get. So for me, the Blair engine is really interesting. I think it's smart that they started with a 1200 watt unit because it's going to be the workhorse. Right here in the States, we can go 15 amp circuit. We could run that 1200X and feel pretty comfortable doing that. We're on the edge when you're in that 500 to 750 watt COB world. You really, there are times when you want to light a certain way where you're just not going to get enough oomph. I mean, you can get there, right? You shoot with a C400 or C80, many Sony cameras, very capable at 12,800 ISO, and you can get clean exposure at a higher ISO with those cameras with, a 500 to 750 watt chip on board light. But that 1200X really sort of takes that and says, this is like the all around workhorse key light. Still not going to handle every situation in terms of ambience and everything else. But my understanding is that because of the way the light engine is designed, it's not just a 1200 watt equivalent to, let's say, the 1200D from Aperture. You're getting considerably more light output from the fixture as well. So because of the way the engine is designed, the efficiency of that, so it may be drawing the same amount, from mains, but you're getting more output for that 1200-watt fixture. So that's also interesting because it then means if we get a 600X and it's more efficient, we may be pushing to a point where we're getting output for virtually all keying situations, maybe with a slightly smaller form factor. And I'd love to see what Nanlite's going to do in this space. You know, they're very serious about what they're doing with lighting as well. And they're sort of the other, I won't say big, I mean, they're a pretty big company, but they're the other company that's just cranking out lights and fixtures on such a regular basis. Um, and it's not discounting any of the other lighting technology. We know that RGB ACL can produce really, really good white light. And, you know, from the fixtures that are made from companies like Nanlite, they don't have a lot, but they have the Nanlux 900, they have the 60C, those are RGB ACL units. You've got Kelvin with their EPOS, their Play EPOS 300, EPOS 600 lights. Those are RGB ACL. Obviously, we've seen Ari go down that road as well. Um, so it's a very valid way. And of course, until we start to see what we're getting in the real world with Blair and the 1200X and the other fixtures that are going to use that light engine from Aperture, it's all just going to be in the marketing world to begin with, but then we'll start to get a real sense of that. But again, just kind of going back to the idea of who's there at the company and what they're doing. You know, you've got especially like Tim Kang, and you know, you've got Ted there pushing this forward. They're very serious about what they're doing in that space. So I think we're going to see some nice results from that light and that light engine and what we're going to get out of it. Is it going to be a make or break? Like people are going to see that and go, wow, you know, people just look so much better with that. I don't necessarily think it's going to be that. It's not going to be so drastically different. We all know that, you know, if we set our cameras up the right way and we have our color temperature set on our lights and we find that combination that, that we're going to get great results, right, with LED based lighting fixtures. But the closer we can get to reproducing that color spectrum that we would get out of a quartz halogen bulb, but with the, you know, the upsides of LED technology. Yes, it produces lots of heat, but that heat tends to be contained within the fixture and is dissipated and handled with the fixture, the better. Quick question, just as an update. Just want to make sure everything is still clean in terms of picture and sound and sync. It hasn't degraded considerably. So let me know about that, because you kids have become very quiet here in the chat as I babble away about lighting and lighting technology. So let me know about that. I'm just going to take a double check. Yeah, because it's still uploading here. So Shoji Production says, what company product makes the most accurate white COB light? Thank you, DJ, on the confirmation of looking and sounding. Looking part, I don't know about DJ, but the sounding part I'll take. So I don't know if there's one company that's making the most accurate. You know, your best resource, in my opinion, when it comes to lights and comparing them and understanding sort of what they're capable of is Matt Allard's reviews on newsshooter.com. So he really gets into the nitty-gritty of all of that stuff. And you know, he loves lights from a lot of different companies. A lot of companies are making a lot of great lights. The Kelvin lights are very, very accurate. Nanlite seems to be making very, very accurate white light fixtures, not using this Blair engine. And then you have, you know, other, and that's really Nang Wong, but they have two brands. They have Nan Lux, which is sort of serving the higher end cinema market, and then you have Nan Light, which sort of goes from like the entry point to sort of the middle. So it's a little different than the Amarin Aperture thing. I would say that there's more of a delineation with those two brands than Nan Light, which sort of creeps up into professional, and then Nang Wong, which is not necessarily dipping into the intro market, but they're definitely sort of squarely, whereas Aperture sort of is middle to high. I would say that Nan Light is low to middle, and then Nan Lux is high, and Amarin is sort of like low, and then again Aperture sort of middle to high end of market, if that made any sense. But there's other ones. You've got Lupo, Italian company, and they're making great fixtures. They're kind of no frills fixtures, but the quality of light that they're producing is very good. And then, not that I can pretend that I understand it completely, but you have SSI as a reading, and this spectral reading in terms of, a reading at daylight, color temperature, tungsten, or I really have a 3200 Kelvin color temperature, and those numbers indicating not just sort of another indicator of quality of light, but also how well lights might play with each other from different brands. It's a whole thing. I'm freezing up. Uh-oh. Dithering. It's happening. Let me see if I can do something. Give me a second, kids, okay? Give me a second. How can I do this? I wish YouTube had a pause feature. I don't know if they do. I don't see a pause feature here. Let me just see. Come on. What happens if I close this out? Changes you made may not be saved. Okay. How bad is it? Tell me. Give me I want the truth here with the dithering and the freezing up and everything else. I need to know the actual truth here, because I'm going to jump off the upload. It won't take me that long when I'm done, if that's the case. You want to let me know? Anybody? Spicoli? Bueller? Anybody? You've all gone quiet. Have I frozen? I'm waiting. I need a David or a Thaddeus or a Brandon to jump in here. We're not getting a lot of questions after this. Is that because I've frozen and I've dithered? Do I need an aspirin? We don't have Pat here to answer that question. I don't, but there's nothing. What's happening? All right, I guess I'm going to have to stop the upload. Dang it. All right, let's see what happens. I'm going to do this. Copy, and then boom, and then leave. All right, let's see what happens. Sometimes live streams are experiments, real-time experiments. I have now quit the upload on YouTube. It's very silent here in the comments and reactions in the chat. So I'd love to see somebody post something here to let me know if they're hearing and see. Oh, something just showed up. You're not frozen. You still have some dithering. Look, Thaddeus, let's be honest. Brandon brought this up as well. There's always going to be some dithering when it comes to me. You can just call me the ditherer. That doesn't make any sense. Looks okay. Bill's back. Sunglasses are real. I will just have to hop back onto the YouTubes and do that. Did I completely go away? Because Carol said that I froze. Did I freeze for a long time? How bad is it going to be? That's all I want to know. I'm never going to watch the episode over again. I do refer to them sometimes, like I had to for the winners of the last trivia thing. And I don't know if I finished that thought earlier. I did say that we're going to do trivia next week. We're going to have another contest for the month of September. A lot of fun, probably in the last half, maybe in the first half. You'll have to log in to see for the contest. But for the August winners, you're welcome, Brandon, for fixing the thing. You know what I'm talking about with the prize. The other prizes for the month of August for the last trivia thing, those have all been sent out to B&H, and those should all ship out shortly. So that was Pat with the sandbags, and we had who else? Micah won Pike won two things, I think. An umbrella and the little super clamp grip head thing from Impact. And then somebody else won one of those as well. And somebody won the backdrop. Yeah. Those are all been sent out. All the data. Thank you for getting me that. Don't forget in the future, by the way, when you're sending me your contact info, don't forget the phone number. Good Jeff says, I haven't lost you streaming from my phone while I eat dinner. Well, that's good. Hopefully you're eating something good for dinner. That means that you are probably Central or East Coast Eastern time. And yeah, that's good. All right, let me know what you're having for dinner, if it's interesting enough to share. All right, what are we going to talk about, kids? It is halfway through the stream. I give my thoughts tomorrow on the C80 from Canon. It's not a I have the camera, I'm going out and shooting with it. It's not a review. It's thoughts on the camera and sort of where I see it fitting within the camera landscape right now. It's a talkie episode, so you probably want to play it at 1.5 to 2x speed based on the way that I speak. It's funny, everybody's a little bit different. I was trying to get through that 1200X presentation with Ted, and I'm like, you know what? I'll hit it at 2X. He speaks faster at his normal speaking speed than I do, but slower than somebody who's speaking Spanish, who's Puerto Rican in New York. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean I grew up with a lot of people who are Puerto Rican who speak Spanish so fast that it's like the Tasmanian devil. It's just like it's going so fast, it's insane. David says it was intermittent, but only for brief moments. Yeah, I think we're good. All right. Yeah. All right. So let's get an at the C47 going. Let's get a new topic. It can be about announcements. I haven't actually bounced over to News Shooter today, so let me just see if there's anything that comes up that is of interest. Of course, the Pavo Slim 240, the CL version, the long version. So it's a 1 foot by 4 foot fixture. I have the 240 regular, which is a 2x2. It folds down to a 1x2 and then opens up. Great fixture. That's what I used to bounce light on that those last couple episodes I did for the interior, kind of like high key window in the background, but not looking out the window in the background. I'm guessing the iPhone 16 and 16 Pro were used, maybe not, for the last Apple event. I didn't look into that at all. 16 Pro looks to be an incremental but interesting update. It's definitely not something, and I may talk about this later, that I would think about upgrading from the 15 Pro from. And I kind of liked it. It doesn't have the longer lens, which is why I didn't actually go with the Max. To me, that longer lens doesn't have a lot of application for my needs. And I don't mind the the Barry White comment. I don't mind the what was I going to say? Oh, okay. I'm just reading that comment. So for the 16 Pro, I think they've done some interesting things. I like the little haptic thing for camera control. I think that's going to be useful and gets that action button away from using it to open up the camera. You can use it for translations or for other things in the device. And it's kind of smart. The action button, I think you can set it to one thing for daylight, and then in the evening, like you might set it to the flashlight. So it seems pretty interesting to me. But if you own maybe even a 14, but definitely a 15, I would say there's probably not enough draw to make the upgrade, especially if it's camera related. If the rumors are true, it sounds like we're going to get a bump on the front-facing camera on the 17. That's more interesting to me, going from like a 12 to a 24 megapixel front-facing camera, because I use that camera a lot for things like the Daily Drop. Good Jeff just says a delicious wrap. from my favorite restaurant / watering hole. Okay. Um, I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna go out on a limb here. It's not a limb. I'm gonna go out. I'm just gonna say it. I'm not a wrap person. Like if it's like a lavash, is that it? Lavash. It's like some sort of like really nice bread, and you wrap it. That's one thing. I'm kind of against the tortilla in a cold sandwich kind of thing. Like I'm loving tortillas, but I don't know for wraps. I think it's in the kale category for me. Um, I don't despise kale, by the way, but it's just doesn't get me excited. Um, yes, faster transfer speed. Sounds good. But if I could go from a 15 Pro to a 16 Pro, and it wasn't changing how much I was paying every month, maybe I would consider it. But I don't think there's enough of a bump for me. Like going to the 15 Pro was a pretty big bump for me, and I was pretty impressed with what I got out of that camera. Uh, and I think I had bought the 13 because I ran over my previous phone with a lawnmower, which was crazy. I had that phone forever, and I was sort of forced to upgrade. And I was never that happy with the 13. And the 15 Pro really was a huge bump. And of course, it had a lot of things going for it: USB-C, ProRes, log, camera upgrades. So this to me is doing the job. But I'll be interested to see what happens next September. But I'm probably going to hold off again unless my cost per month would be identical to go to the next one. I don't do that thing where you like pay to upgrade. It's just not a thing for me. All right, let's get back to news shooter. Axoon CineView Master 4K wireless system looks really interesting. Very, very low latency and can do 4K up to 60p. So and very long range. Cook has a new 6-lens set, and they have their new 18 millimeter. Starting to see some stuff on that. New lav mic from Sony. And then so just lenses and stuff like that. I don't know if there's anything else that is major. What's this? Oh, this is the and then there's a comm system that's new from Hollyland. Axoon has a new comm system, or they've announced it prior to. I have something here that I'm going to create some content on around that. And I'm just looking here. This one was kind of popping out at me. Big changes to Adobe Premiere too, in terms of the color management system and stuff. Potato Jet's carbon fiber tripod kit. Does that mean it's coming to market? They've released it, and I guess there's a price. So I'm interested to see that thing. Let's just see. Boom, boom, boom. It's a pretty short article. $799, just under $800. $799.99 US dollars. Okay. So at the end of the end credits on the Apple presentation said shot on iPhone, edited on Mac. Makes sense. Okay. It's not the first time they've done that. Interested to see if they use that or the 15 or the 16, probably the 15, but who knows. And the other big thing in the iPhone is 4K 120. I don't know if it's a big thing. I'm not somebody who shoots a lot of off-speed stuff. I do it occasionally. It still has a hello, good sir. Thank you for being here. So to me, the 4K 120 isn't like a huge draw. Um, and somebody made a comment. Who was it that said this? If they can do 4K 60, it means technically they can probably do 8K 30. But that's not something that's in the camera right now. Maybe it was Marquise Brownlee. I don't know. I can't remember exactly. I think so. So, but that's true. And I'd be more interested in getting like a 6K, 24 or 30, so that I can have even a little bit of freedom to punch in. That would be pretty interesting to me overall. Still wish that third-party developers started to put in some of the cinematic, um, portrait type stuff in. I don't know if they have access to that or not. Yeah, 4K 120 on a phone to record the kids would be awesome. It's like the soccer mom's dream, right? Um, get that long lens, which I think you can still shoot in 4K 120, and you do some epic slow-mo stuff of your kid tackling another kid or whatever. Could be good for hockey. That's my thought. I don't know. Highlight? Miami? What do you think? All right. There we go. So other announcements. I mean, I'm hoping we get a couple more before IBC. I'm not anticipating any other big camera announcements. Maybe, but not that I'm aware of. But yeah, a lot of lenses, like Nikon has their Nikkor 50 1.4, sort of like their everyday. Not quite a nifty 50, but they're coming out with that kind of stuff, and yeah, just accessories for the C80 and things like that. Those are the things that are sticking out to me. Let me just double check the Cine D site and see what those boys have, if anything that seems interesting. And I'm waiting for an At the C47 here to bring up something else for us to talk about. So let's get this going here. Some new bags from Peak Design. I'll have to take a look at those. I'm always loving things related to bags. Again, Aperture Storm 1200X, that Nanlite 4x1 RGBWW 240 CL. And yeah, I mean, I love the fact that we're seeing plus minus green in almost all of the fixtures. That was also a big thing with the 1200X, is because of that Blair light engine. They can really give you a huge range in terms of plus minus green. All right. I'm the Brown says, is the sensor a real 48 megapixel sensor? I don't know. Seems like the previous models were doing a pixels shift. Possible. I mean, they're definitely upgraded the cameras on the new 16. But I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if it's sort of like that fake, 8 plus 2 10-bit, or what the deal is. Oh no, is in the house. Coffee Bean has arrived. I'm not seeing any Grumpy Penguin this week. 360 Grad, I hope, is fine. Haven't seen 360 Grad in a long time. But good to have you here. Oh no. So we got about, and again, with the weekly live stream, it doesn't need to be. We've got about 15, just over 15 minutes left. So if you guys want to bring up a topic here for us to discuss, or you want to talk more about a particular product announcement, or get into something related to pre-production, production, producing, whatever you want to talk about, please throw that up in the chat. Why didn't the iPhone have 8K? Are you talking about because it's not a true higher pixel camera? Maybe. Brandon, where were you? We started to talk about the C80 a little bit. Tomorrow's episode is a Talking Heads episode of me with my thoughts on the C80, and also sort of where I see that camera sitting with the current landscape of cameras. So we haven't talked about it much here. I'm happy to talk about it in the live stream as well, because I think what I'm saying in the daily drop is a little bit different. It's sort of kind of how I'm looking at the camera and stuff like that, and where I see it in relationship to the C400, R5C, but also other cameras from companies like Sony and stuff like that. Brad, good to have you here coming in. So what do we got? what are we doing here? What are we talking about? So if we want to talk about the C80, let's get into the C80. If we want to talk about something else, let's get into something else. I need information. I need feedback. So give me an at the C47. Brandon, if you want to talk more about it, give me a particular thing, sort of, or somebody else, a lane of us talking about that camera. Because I do think it's interesting. I think excuse me. Whoa. Oh no, that happened. I think that the fact that we're seeing that announcement right before IBC, somewhat strategic. The C400 really isn't shipping yet. It will be within days. And then we have a camera that's coming out, it looks like in November-ish, which is the C80, and clearly designed to be cameras that are used together. So, yes, there's things that the C80 is missing that the C400 doesn't have, but yeah. So Brandon says, do you ever get offered pre-production or early release products for review? I do. That does happen. But the channel, and I really try to make this very clear to people that are either interested in sponsoring the channel or interested in content for me to create. This channel isn't about reviews. So I don't really focus on doing reviews on this particular channel. I'm not saying I'm never going to talk about a product and what its features are and stuff, but the intent behind the content is to always have an educational component to it. And so when I'm talking to companies, that's when I don't get the pre-production stuff, because they just want to have a lot of content, many of these companies, that drops when a new product is released. So I'm finding that a little bit harder to get access to certain types of product categories, especially when it comes to things like cameras. To a certain degree, lights, but less so. But cameras for sure. I don't really get invited to those special Sony, events and stuff like that. And it's just not the kind of content that I create. But when a company wants to create educational content, they want to create tutorial content, they want to create content that has to do with the actual using of the practical application, the doingness of what we do, then I'm a potential fit for that kind of content. So that does happen. And it's fun to get a product that hasn't been released yet and give feedback, but it's also a tremendous amount of work, because it's sort of like part of your job. If they don't just want to send you a camera and have you help push brown boxes on release day, is to give feedback and to let them know what is and isn't working, even if that may not get integrated into the final version, which it usually doesn't. So I'm hearing you on the iris control. Oh no, it sounds like on the update, at least for the 16, there's going to be some things camera wise and just sort of like locking iris and exposure in an easier way, I think. Brandon says, I'm waiting for Canon to level up their ISO closer to Sony level. Curious if the C80 is that. Well, I will say this, Brandon, before we get into the next comment from Ono, that both the C400 and the C80, which share the same exact sensor with the triple ISO, if we've got a base ISO of 12,800, I think we're getting close. My understanding is that you want to go higher to lower ISO, meaning if you wanted to shoot at let's say you wanted to shoot at 6400 ISO, you would be better off starting at 12,800 and going down to 6400 than starting at 3200 and going to 64. So I think we're going to get close with that, and the AF system and stuff like that. Gerald Undone gets invited to those events and was talking about how he just hangs out and doesn't make videos at them. I think that's true. He also has some very strong views in terms of the machine that exists right now around creators and influencers and when new products get released. Um, you know, and there is a whole other category of influencers and creators which may get invited to those types of events. They may be creating content around those, but a lot of those people, um, it's not everybody, but a lot of those people are also getting paid to create content. They're not necessarily getting paid to say you should buy this, but just the way their channels are structured and the amount of subscribers they have, they're running that channel in a different way from a business perspective. So if you want to have a particular product featured on certain channels, the rate is can be crazy, I've heard. Like, yeah, but that's, I don't blame them. They're running a business. They're putting a lot of time in and they grew the channel. And, as long as it's not like pure shill, I don't want to see somebody one week saying I'm quitting Canon and then the next week saying I'm quitting Sony. It's never going to be in 2 weeks, but you know the idea. But if they're being objective about what they do and don't like, and they're also getting paid and they disclose that, then I think that's okay. It just has to be presented a certain way. Because I have an end roll on every episode of the Daily Drop now that says sponsored by, most of my episodes have nothing to do with the sponsors at all and they don't feature the products from the sponsors. But because I roll that, I check the box for every single episode that I have sponsor content now, even if it's something that I'm talking about that has nothing to do with sponsorship at all. And yeah, you guys get the idea. Yeah, I don't know if Gerald got kicked out because he said he wasn't invited to an event, but I don't know. Sully, good to have you. Hello to you as well, and thank you for saying hi to everybody here. So, what else we got? We're into the what I would call the home stretch, the re-uploading tomorrow's episode of the Daily Drop. And what else do we want to talk about in the last 8 to 10 minutes of the episode or the live stream? Happy to go over anything that you want. That is the whole purpose of the weekly live stream. Next week, at a certain point during that 1 hour period, we're going to do, if you just got here, another trivia contest. So I'll pick 3 or 4 products from B&H and we'll do a number of questions, and I will just say US residents only. Unfortunately, that is just the way it works with the B&H contests. And if you have won a prize in the last 2 months, I ask that that you are there in support of the other viewers, but we're going to give some other people a chance. Switching camera systems is a YouTube channel staple. It can be. I haven't seen I'm quitting blah blah in a while. I think a lot of creators and influencers that have been around for a while, anybody who's done it especially, realizes it's not good for the team, right? To me, my personal opinion, and I've held this for a long time, is that if you're in this space in some way, shape, or form, and you have and you're presenting information and you are making recommendations about equipment that relates to video production and filmmaking, to me, you should have some semblance of a viewpoint that you are an ambassador for, and that's a stupid label. I'm not an ambassador necessarily, but an ambassador for the industry, because we're going to always go through these cycles or the pendulum swinging where, 1 year it's going to be Sony who has clearly, for the majority of people, the best all-around camera system or product family that's going to work well. And then all of a sudden, somebody's going to come out with a new product in the camera space or the lighting space or whatever, and now they're going to be the one for the next 6 to 12 months or 18 months that's going to sort of be at the top of the mountain. And that's just going to go on and on. And there's never going to be a clear quote unquote winner. So when you quit a company, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot, because at some point that company is going to have something that you probably want to use. And if you had a relationship with that company, it's it's kind of hard, but also kind of easy to burn bridges. So I think that viewpoint is pretty important, to kind of have that viewpoint that you're an ambassador for the industry. And, there's going to be trends all of the time. Um, do your clients request a particular camera and format of files to turn over? Almost never. And they're starting to get over the smaller camera type of situation. I mean, sometimes you set up a 150 centimeter, 60-inch softbox as your key light, and they're seeing that. And if I set up an FX30 or an R5C, it's a little less relevant. I don't feel compelled to put a map box on the camera just to make it look bigger. And I get it. There are situations with certain types of clients where you got to go in and sort of the whole package has to look bigger. And I do occasionally, I'll take that back, I'm De Brown, just a little bit. I do have one client who's like, oh, we'd like to shoot this on Alexa or on Red. So fine, it's a camera. And there are good things about both of those camera systems overall, or companies that make cameras, but it's not really going to make a big difference. What light do you recommend as a rim light for an indoor interview? That's a good question. I would say that right now, my go-to, and I've talked about this in my episodes, and there's other equivalents to this, but my go-to is the Nanlite 60C, which is an RGB ACL light. They also make a 60B, which is just a bicolor light. The thing that I don't love about that, if I can remember correctly, I'm pretty sure it doesn't have a plus minus green adjustment. And I definitely like to use the C800 meter, it's somewhere around here, and meter my lights to a particular Kelvin temperature, and then make adjustments plus minus green so that we're not metering any shift. Now, the exception to that would be you're trying to match the color cast in the space. So if there's a fair amount of ambient light, and I did this actually recently on the shoot, and you're finding that the light that's coming in from the outside might be skewing a little green, right? Let's say it's daylight coming in from outside, it's bouncing off of grass and coming in, and that overall color temperature is a little bit green. Then you might want to take all of your lights in the space and skew them slightly green or slightly magenta, because then when you adjust the image, you're adjusting the image overall. You might have a slight green or a slight magenta cast on your talent, but if the overall space is sitting slightly more green, slightly more magenta, that plus minus green can be an advantage, not just to dial your lights in a completely controlled environment into okay, we're not skewing green or magenta, but more to match the environment that you're in. Okay. You are right. Good technique. Okay, so to answer that question, because I half-assed answered it, Shoji Productions, the Nanlite 60C, but with the small FM 36-degree projection attachment. And to me, that is just the most controllable rim or edge light that I've had, because you have those leaves and you can adjust them and you can get very specific in terms of how that light is hitting somebody, more circular, more rectangular, sliver, whatever it's going to be. And also what's great about projection attachments is not only do they have a lot of reach, but because of the optical element, you can make that basically projected image very sharp on the edges, or you can defocus it to soften it up. So it's essentially like a feathering of the light. So projection attachment, great. Probably my second would be to go with something like a Fresnel that has barn doors, so you can get a little bit of control over that. That's what I got for you. Make Art Now made a great video on the Insta360X4 and using the video for tracking data to stabilize vintage lens footage. Really great video to check out if you haven't seen it. I saw the post on it. I haven't watched it yet, good Jeff, and I'm very interested in it. Josh makes great videos, and what I like about his videos is they're very much not the same as videos. And so he takes his time. He doesn't release a video all of the time. Look who's talking. But I find them very interesting, so I will almost definitely watch that. Ono says, I put the matte box on my FX30 so I can run around pretending I've got a panicle to screaming, I'm Roger Deakins. That's funny. Ono Coffee says that's on. I have to check it out. Boom. Okay, we got some laughs there. Okay, good. Almost at the end here. Well, technically, now that I took my glasses off so I could actually see, waiting for my new glasses to come in. These are oldies, sort of backup, falling apart, but do the job. They have good anti-glare, so they work for this. I've got these other really crappy backup glasses, but you can see those are, look, there's the difference. Boom. And then who came in with that? What's happening? What? Come on. Ridiculous. Wait, is it showing up? I have to move the box. It's there. Oh. We got to have some drama here. Come on. $20. That's crazy. I'm DeBrown. Thank you. Thanks for the daily advice, quantity and quality in all 10 minutes or less. I appreciate that very much. I also appreciate everybody's engagement. The fact that we have a small, but I think pretty strong community here. If you haven't told your friends about the C47's channel and the Daily Drop, please do. I want it to grow. You know, again, the dream is not necessarily to make millions of subscribers. I would love the channel to grow and at a better rate than it is. I love engagement. I love having the weekly live streams get more lively and more questions. I won't forget about the originals. Trust me. It's a thing. I mean, yeah, look at that. I mean, that anti-glare compared to that, it's real. I got the same kind of coating for my new glasses. It's a thing. I'm DeBrown. Great way to end off the live stream. As I said before, next week we are going to be doing trivia. So get your brains in order for that. And I think if you haven't watched it, today's episode of the Daily Drop is pretty interesting. A lot of behind the scenes stuff. It was a still photography shoot and using continuous light. We use the Nanlite 500B2, the Nanlite 300B2, and that 60C with the projection attachment. And we actually use gobos for that. And I use Mylar for some stuff. And I think it's a pretty interesting episode and a little bit different than some of the ones that I've been posting recently. So if you've got a little bit of time, check out today's episode if you haven't seen it. And then tomorrow's will be more talking head and kind of talking about that EOS C80, which I think is going to be a good camera combined with the C400, especially for people in certain workflows and what they're doing. As always, thank you again. More episodes of the Daily Drop through whenever. They just keep going. And I don't know what the trivia prizes are. Lowercase J, uppercase S, Jessica Schofield. I know who you are. That's one S to you, Brandon, who calls me GEM and blames it on Siri. Got to take the piss every once in a while. I don't know what the trivia prizes are yet. I do know that we'll definitely have some stuff in the grip area. Maybe some light modifier, maybe lights. I kind of have to figure it out. It's a beautiful thing. I get certain brands under what's called the gratis group, and I can do up to $500 worth of prizes every single month. So I'll have to figure that all out, and you'll know next week. That's why you got to tune in for the live stream. And you know what? Invite your friends because of the people who have won recently. Get some more people in here and let's grow this thing organically. I'm not going out to some of the emails that have been sent to me and I'm inflating all that kind of stuff. Cheers to you, Jeff, and to everybody else. And I'll see everybody on the next episode. See you soon.